Ever get that feeling, like where you let your mind wander, where your thoughts kind of gravitate towards? That's where you end up in life.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely.
Like, it's a little bit unnerving, isn't it, to think about, like, are you happy with where your strongest thoughts are pulling you?
It's a great question to consider. Absolutely.
And the thing is, it's kind of wild to me that it's not just some, new age self-help stuff, but like you see it in ancient wisdom, you see it in the Bible, you see it in cutting edge science. They all seem to be saying the same thing.
Yeah.
So today, we're going to get super practical.
I like it.
We're going to take the reins of our thoughts.
Absolutely.
We're going to figure out how to actually steer this thing.
Yeah. And this is not some pie-in-the-sky concept. It's about an actual battle that's going on in your mind.
Right.
Every single day. And a lot of times we're not even aware of it, but we feel the effects of it.
You feel it.
And sometimes it feels like almost like we're held hostage by an inner critic or those voices in our head that won't stop. We're going to unpack some truths here that can make a real difference in your life.
Absolutely.
No matter your background, your beliefs, where you come from, these things are true.
So to kind of, guide our journey today, we're using your shared material, Winning the War in Your Mind by Craig Groeschel.
Awesome book.
And we're going to be kind of pulling out some of those key themes, those key ideas, like how to identify the lies that we've come to believe.
Yes.
How our thinking can dig these deep ruts, how to swap those lies for truth, and then the power of seeing things from a different perspective, how that can totally change things, and even like prayer and praise. Where does that all fit in?
Yeah.
So that's kind of our roadmap for this deep dive.
Love it.
And our goal today is really to help you understand how to transform your thinking.
Yeah.
So you can truly experience freedom from that anxiety, from negativity, and really step into that place of consistent joy and peace.
That's the goal.
So let's talk about this. Let's unpack this whole idea of a battle for your mind. Because when we think of battles, we often think of something that's external.
Right. Like a war or a fight or something physical, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
But in the book, we see it's not. It's really this internal conflict that's going on.
Absolutely.
What are your thoughts on that?
Well, what's so fascinating about it is that it's often a silent battle. You're not even aware that you're in a battle.
Yeah.
It's going on and you're not even conscious of it, but it's producing very real consequences in your life.
You feel the effects.
You feel it. Yeah, it can show up as you're struggling to break a habit you want to break. You're struggling to connect with God.
Yeah.
Or you're feeling disconnected.
Yeah.
It could be that you're just quick to anger.
Sure.
Or maybe you're impulsive. You make bad decisions. You regret things.
Yeah.
Maybe it's that you're struggling in your most important relationships.
All of that.
Yeah, it's the constant worry, the fear, negativity. That's all a part of it.
It really makes you think about those verses in the Bible about spiritual warfare and those things that we can't see that are going on kind of behind the scenes.
Absolutely.
The book even quotes Ephesians 6.1. And this is what it says: "For we are not fighting against flesh and blood enemies, but against evil rulers and authorities of the unseen world, against mighty powers in this dark world, and against evil spirits in the heavenly places."
Yeah, it's not people, it's something beyond that.
Right.
And it's a whole different perspective when you start to think about your struggles, and there could be a source, there could be something else going on.
And the thing is, the book goes on to identify the adversary.
Yes.
The spiritual enemy that's behind a lot of this, and really his game plan. It's pretty clear. Like, he has an agenda, and it's not a good one.
No, it's not. And the Bible's very clear about it. It talks about in John 10:10 that he's a thief who comes only to steal, kill, and destroy.
Right.
And in 1 Thessalonians 2:18, it talks about how he's actually trying to hinder your progress. In 1 Peter 5:8, it describes him as a roaring lion looking for someone to devour. The bottom line, there is a force that is trying to prevent you from living the life you were designed to live.
And it's not always, these big outward attacks. It's so often very subtle, and it's like he's working in the background.
It's in the shadows. Yeah. And one of his favorite tactics is just to plant seeds in your mind.
Seeds of what?
Seeds of self-doubt, confusion about your direction, worry about things that may happen, the heaviness of depression, anxiety. These are some of his primary weapons on this unseen battlefield of your mind.
Okay, let's talk about the power of lies, because this was one of those light bulb moments for me. The book gives that classic example of, we all heard it growing up.
Oh, yeah.
You have to wait so long after you eat to go swimming.
Don't go swimming after you eat.
I mean, I remember as a kid being like, oh, I'm going to get a cramp.
Oh, yeah.
It's going to be terrible.
You're going to drown. You're going to die.
You're done. You're done.
Stomach cramp. You can't swim with a stomach cramp.
Right, and we all believed it.
Totally.
Whether it's true or not, I don't know.
Probably not.
I think it's probably okay.
Yeah, probably.
But because we believed it, it shaped our behavior.
Of course.
Like, we were like, okay, I'm not going in for another hour. I got to wait.
Totally.
And I think what the book is getting at is that we have these bigger lies.
Yes.
That we've bought into, and even though they're not true, they shape our lives as if they are.
It's such a profound truth that if you accept a lie as truth, it will impact your life the same as if it were the truth.
That's power.
It's like that swimming example, but you multiply it.
Right.
So you think about, I'm not good enough, I've messed up too many times, no one really understands me. These are just big lies that can have a huge impact on our lives.
And the author gets real. He gets personal in the book and talks about his own struggle with not being good enough, which I think is surprising to a lot of people.
I think so. I mean, when you think about all he's accomplished.
He seems to have it all together.
Right. So that was surprising to me.
Yeah.
But he shared some really kind of like funny but poignant childhood moments that really fed into that feeling.
Yeah, it's just so interesting. I mean, he talks about, wearing socks, and his mom would sew the Izod logo back on the socks, and he thought everybody did that.
Oh.
And then he found out they didn't. He talks about being colorblind and how, that made him feel less than. He talks about misspelling Mississippi in the spelling bee.
Oh, no.
He talked about getting dumped by a girl because she went out with a guy who had a motorcycle, so clearly wasn't good enough.
Tough.
Compared to his father, who's this athletic guy, he felt inadequate. And it's just interesting how these seemingly small things can actually become a part of the narrative in our lives.
Yeah.
We start to tell ourselves a story.
A story that's not even true.
Yeah, that we're not good enough or that we're less than. And then the book goes on to say that these weren't just like these passing feelings.
Right.
Like these things really affected him. They went deep. They really almost derailed his call.
Almost derailed his calling, yeah.
To ministry.
Yeah.
He talks about early on when he was first, kind of stepping out.
Yeah.
To try to teach and to preach, he got some really direct negative feedback.
Brutal feedback.
Really tough, yeah. Like somebody actually said to him, well, I guess teaching the Bible is not your gift, is it?
Oof.
I mean, talk about a punch in the gut.
That's so discouraging.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, to put yourself out there, you're vulnerable, you're trying, and then to have somebody say that to you, it really highlights how fragile we are, how vulnerable we are when we're putting ourselves out there, and how powerful other people's words can be to really impact our inner world, our inner state, our inner life.
Right.
But then he talks about this incredible moment.
This turning point.
Yeah.
This moment where he's praying.
He's like at his wit's end.
Yeah.
And he says he hears God's voice.
Wow.
Saying this to him. He says, you are not who others say you are. You are who I say you are. And I say you are called to ministry.
That's powerful.
And so that was this huge turning point for him.
Yeah.
But the book even points out wisely, it wasn't like a light switch.
Right.
You don't just automatically go from being completely negative.
No, of course not.
To being like, oh, I'm totally positive.
Right.
It's a process.
It's a journey.
And that really brings us to this core principle that he talks about, which is the replacement principle.
Yeah.
It's not enough just to stop believing a lie.
Right.
You have to actively replace it with truth.
You have to remove it and put something in its place.
And then he talks about this word, strongholds.
Strongholds.
It sounds so intimidating.
Yeah.
Like these fortresses, in our minds.
Yeah, it's like a castle in your mind.
What are these strongholds in the context of our thoughts?
So a stronghold, think of it as a mental or an emotional lie that has a really strong hold on you.
Okay, it's in there. It's dug in.
It's dug in. It's been there a long time. It's been reinforced over the years.
Yeah.
You've repeated it. It's a pattern of thought. The author talks about his own stronghold, the feeling of never being enough.
Yeah.
Which, again, is surprising because he has all this external validation.
Right.
But he knew the Bible. He loved Jesus. But he couldn't quite get past this feeling.
So head knowledge wasn't enough.
Wasn't enough to penetrate the stronghold. The head knowledge, knowing God loves you, that Jesus died for you, that doesn't mean that you feel it.
Right.
And sometimes those strongholds get in the way.
And the book goes on to quote Proverbs 21.22, which says, "Someone wise can go up against the city of the mighty and pull down the stronghold in which they trust." So these strongholds can be pulled down.
That's right.
They can be demolished.
They can be demolished. The Greek word for demolish there is kathario,
Okay.
and it means like a forceful destruction.
Like a wrecking ball.
Yeah, like a wrecking ball to a fortified building. And what the book's saying is you might feel powerless against these lies you've believed for so long, but the same power that raised Jesus from the dead is available to you.
If you're a believer.
Yes.
But there's this key point. You've got to be able to name it, to claim it,
That's right.
to actually identify it.
You cannot defeat what you cannot define.
Right.
So you've got to get specific about what the lie is. Name it. See the impact that it's having in your life and on others.
And that takes us to exercise 2, which is identifying the lies you believe.
Yes.
And it encourages you, the listener, to take some time and really dig deep and think, what are some of those lies? What are those lies that I've been carrying around?
And he gives some good starting points. Right?
Yeah, he says, I believe I am not good enough.
Mhm.
Or I'll never be able to.
Right.
Or I've messed up too many times.
Yeah, there's so many.
And I think the thing is, it goes on to talk about how these lies, they really act like these constraints in our lives.
They limit you.
They hold us back from doing what we're really meant to do.
They sabotage your relationships.
Absolutely.
The book talks about how past hurt, past pain can actually lead you to stop trying.
You just don't even want to put yourself out there anymore.
You don't want to try anything new.
Yeah, because you're afraid of being hurt again.
You're afraid of the pain.
Right.
You're afraid of disappointment.
Mm-hmm.
And so you stop dreaming.
The book goes all the way back to the beginning, Genesis chapter 3, verses 1 through 5, where you see Satan deceiving Adam and Eve in the garden.
The very beginning.
And the thing is, I think, it makes the point that the enemy, his primary tactic is deception.
Deception, yeah.
It's not always outward attacks.
That's right.
It's these little subtle lies that he whispers,
Yeah.
that he gets us to buy into.
And it starts from the very beginning.
And then he goes on, the author, to say, look at any self-destructive habits or addictions that you have and ask yourself, what is it that's actually driving this behavior?
Right, because that's a clue.
Yeah.
So we all have them, right?
Sure.
And you can look at something and say, okay, maybe I eat too much, or I spend too much money, or I work too much.
You watch too much TV.
I watch too much TV.
You scroll too much.
Or I scroll too much.
All those things.
But the key is to ask, what's the motivation?
What's driving it?
What's driving it? What need is it meeting?
Right.
When does it tend to happen? And how's that different from a habit you have overcome?
Oh.
So, for instance, you look at worry. A lot of people struggle with worry.
Oh, my goodness.
But if you're a chronic worrier, it could be that you're operating on a lie that says God can't be trusted.
Wow.
Yeah.
And he, the author, goes on to share his own example of being driven, to overachieve.
Right.
And it stemmed from this lie of, I've got to prove my worth.
Yeah.
And so many of us can relate to that.
Absolutely.
It's like you feel like you're never doing enough. They're
Yeah.
never quite there.
And it seems positive on the outside. It looks like you're driven and you're ambitious and you're going places.
You're a go-getter.
Yeah.
But underneath, there's this lie.
There's this deep insecurity. Yeah.
And I think his main point here is to say, look, this is a battle for your mind.
Absolutely.
It's time to stop just being on the defensive and reacting.
Yes.
And actually go on the offensive.
Yeah.
Like, it's time to fight back.
You've got to capture those lies. You've got to name them. You've got to expose them.
Right.
And John 8.32 says it so clearly. The truth will set you free.
Okay.
But you got to know the truth.
So let's say we've done that.
Okay.
We've identified the lies that we've been believing.
Mm-hmm.
Is it enough just to stop the behavior?
No.
Is that enough?
That's a great question.
Mm.
Because I think instinctively we're like, if I could just stop doing this thing that I know I shouldn't be doing,
Yeah. I'll be good.
I'll be good.
Right.
But the truth is, that's only part of it.
It's like dealing with the symptoms, but not the
That's exactly right.
root of the problem.
It's like cutting weeds off at the surface, but they've got roots, right?
Yeah.
So you've got to get down to the root of the problem.
And he introduces this idea of creating a trench of truth.
Yeah.
So can you unpack that for us?
Well, the underlying lie, that's a problem. And the neural pathway in your brain, the way your brain works, you've repeated that thought pattern over and over again.
Right.
That's also a problem. So you have to deal with both.
Okay.
He talks about ruts versus trenches. Ruts are like those unintentional thought patterns.
Right.
We all fall into them. We do them without thinking. They're problematic. Trenches are intentional.
We dig those on purpose,
We dig trenches on purpose.
and trenches represent truth.
Yes, trenches represent truth. So every thought that we think actually creates a neurochemical change in our brain.
Wow.
And the more we think a thought, the more established and the deeper that neural pathway becomes, so it becomes easier to think it again
Makes sense.
and harder to think a new thought.
Right.
It's kind of like if you've got a dog.
Yeah.
The author's dog was named Bandit, and Bandit would run in the backyard the same circle over and over again.
My dog does that.
They all do it.
Yeah.
Well, eventually it would wear a rut in the yard.
Mm-hmm.
It's the same in our brains. Our thoughts, the things we repeat, wear ruts in our minds, in our thinking.
So interesting.
And here's the thing, dopamine, it's a neurotransmitter that reinforces behaviors that feel good.
Okay.
So you do something you enjoy, you get this little hit of dopamine, and you want to do it again.
I see.
It can actually reinforce negative things too.
Oh, yeah.
It can cause us to dig deeper ruts even when we don't want to.
But the good news is we can get out of them.
We can, but it takes work.
We're not stuck.
We are not stuck, and God can help us.
But the first step is to recognize them.
That's right. We have to acknowledge they're there.
And then we can start to deal with them.
How do I deal with them?
So he talks about, the author, this rut that he had of constant worry about finances.
Even though,
he knew God was his provider.
right?
He knew it.
He believed it theologically.
Yeah. But he worried anyway. And it shows that even our deep theological beliefs can be undermined.
They can be overshadowed by these ruts.
Yes, by these ingrained thought patterns.
Right.
That's something we got to deal with.
And you know, when you think about it, these ruts, they often have roots in our past.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, the book gives some examples like a grandmother who's anxious about finances, that being passed down through generations.
Wow.
Or a mother who uses food for emotional comfort,
Right.
creating this emotional link to eating.
That's powerful.
Or negative social experiences in childhood that lead to this belief of being a victim, like, woe is me.
Yeah. And all of these things can create these pathways in our brains.
Yeah, and the book uses a term, crossed wires, to describe that, which I think is so good because it's not always that there's big horrible thing that happened.
Right.
It's that our brains, they just learn to respond in a certain way, even to the small stuff, right?
Yeah.
So the author, he has this wake-up call moment where his daughter is at a restaurant and she expresses concern over how much things cost.
She's worried.
She's worried about money.
Yeah.
And he's like, wait a minute.
What?
My anxiety is being passed on to my daughter.
He's like, this is not okay.
And it was this realization that, man, I got to dig a new rut here.
Yeah.
I need a trench.
A trench of truth.
Yes.
And that leads us to exercise 4, which is recognizing your ruts. So the book encourages you, the listener, to take some time, write down those areas where you see these patterns, and then ask God, okay, God, what's the origin of this?
Yeah. Is this something from my childhood? Is this something I learned? Is this something that was passed down?
Right.
Where's this coming from?
Okay, so we've identified the lies. We've recognized those ruts.
Yeah.
How do we actually dig that trench of truth?
Yeah, it's a great question.
Because it sounds like this requires intentionality. It requires work.
It does. You have to be deliberate here. Creating a new neural pathway, a new way of thinking, a new way for your brain to work requires that you choose a new thought and you repeat it.
Over and over.
Over and over.
Okay.
And the goal is for this new thought to become the new dominant thought pattern in your life.
Okay.
So the author shares his personal declaration of truth that he used to fight his fear of finances.
Okay.
And it was based on Philippians 4.12, Zechariah 8.33, Acts 20.35, 2 Corinthians 9.8, and Philippians 4.19.
Quite a few verses there.
A few, yeah.
And he's stringing them together.
Yes, and the idea is to make a new truth.
His new truth, his new way of thinking.
His new way of thinking, yeah.
And he gives another example of a declaration for overcoming comfort eating, using 1 Corinthians 6.20, John 6.35, and Jeremiah 16.19.
Great verses.
And it's this idea that, we need to consciously replace those lies with truth.
That's it. It's the principle of replacement.
And there's this law of exposure.
Yes, the law of exposure.
Which is Basically, our minds absorb and reflect what we expose them to most.
Whatever you feed the most grows the most.
And that's why he talks about meditating on truth.
Meditating on truth, yeah.
Which is not emptying your mind.
Right.
It's really filling it.
It's filling your mind with God's word, with truth, with things that are good and noble and right and pure and lovely.
Right, from Philippians.
Yeah.
And the author even shares some of his own faith declarations for negative self-talk and for financial worries.
Yeah.
And then he explains how to meditate on these declarations, not just reading them, but writing them down.
Yes.
Thinking about them, confessing them.
Out loud.
Out loud. And it's this repetition that starts to change things.
Because it's forging new neural pathways. And what's fascinating is the analogy he uses of cows. They ruminate.
Right, they chew their cud.
They chew their cud, yeah. They eat, they bring it back up, and they chew on it again.
We're processing it.
Yeah, and that's biblical meditation. You taking God's word and you just chew on it.
You think about it.
You think about it, you talk about it, you pray it, you sing it.
It's not just a one-time...
It's not just a one-time thing.
Read it.
It's an ongoing process.
And that repetition that we use to create those negative ruts,
Yeah.
we can use it to create positive ones.
To create the trenches.
Those trenches of truth.
Yeah, absolutely. That's the goal.
And the book even quotes Zig Ziglar. And Ziglar says this: repetition is the mother of learning, the father of action, which makes it the architect of accomplishment.
So good. So you want to accomplish something in your life.
Repeat it.
Repeat it.
Repeat the truth. And the author shares a story about learning to speak French through total immersion, but it was awkward.
Awkward at first, yeah, because his French wasn't that good.
But he kept speaking it.
Kept having conversations as best he could.
And it worked.
It worked. And over time, it became automatic.
He was fluent.
And that's the goal.
And I love this point. He says, knowing the truth is not the same as believing it.
That's right.
Or living it.
You can know the truth and not live like it's true.
Right.
And you can know the truth, but deep down inside, you don't really believe it.
Yeah, there's a disconnect.
Yes.
And he goes on to tell a story about a tax mistake that triggered his financial anxiety.
Yeah.
And this is after, he'd had this revelation about God being his provider.
Yeah, it was after that. And so he had this moment. He's hit with this tax mistake. And instead of going into that same panic, fear, he started reciting his declarations.
He went back to his truths.
Yes. And even though he said it didn't feel automatic yet, it still produced a shift.
It started to change things.
It did. It changed things.
And I love that he gives us some really practical steps for